Welcome to Chad Emmons Entertainment, and in this video we're going to talk about the time signature. Now, it's very important to understand what the time signature is, and if you're trying to level up your reading and your sight reading, the two important parts of that is the time signature, understanding exactly what it means, and your key signatures. And then later on you need to learn how to subdivide. But in order to know how to subdivide, you have to actually know what those numbers mean, the top number and the bottom number of the time signature. So let's say we have you have time signatures like 4-4, 3-4, right? 2-4. You have those kinds of time signatures. You have 6-8 a lot. You see 6-8 a lot. 12-8 a lot. 3-8. You'll see 3-8. Now, sometimes signatures you don't see a lot would be something like 2-2. 2-2. Let's just have some fun. 3-16. You won't see that, but 3-16. But let's understand. Okay, what does all this mean? What does the top number mean and the bottom number? Okay, let's get into this. So, the time signature. The top number of a time signature tells us how many beats are in each measure, or it tells us how many of the bottom number represents the type of note value, right? How many of those notes are going to occupy that space or be inside that measure? So let's see. Now let's get into this thing. Let's get into this thing because I want you to be good at reading this music. Sight reading should not be a problem once you get past this part here. All right, so let's take 6-8. In 6-8 time, this 8 represents the 8th note. All right? Or you can see it like this, 8 notes. You've seen it. The 8 equals the 8th note. So, in this case, 6-8 is telling us that there's going to be 6 beats in a measure, and the 8th note gets the beat, or meaning that there's going to be 8 eighth notes in that space or in that measure. What I mean by space is this. So here's a musical staff. Here's the bar lines, and the space between the bar lines are called measures. If you didn't know that, I'm pretty sure you already knew that, but I'm just saying. So in that space, there should be at least 6 eighth notes. Now, if you didn't know that, this is good information for you, knowing what that bottom number means. If you had 12-8, right, that tells us there are at least 12 beats in that space, in the measure, and there should be 12 eighth notes in that measure. Very important to know that. 3-8. That tells us there are 3 beats in a measure. The top number tells us how many of these guys are going to occupy that space. 3 beats in a measure, 8th note gets the beat, meaning there should be only 3 eighth notes in a measure. Now, when I say only, I mean add up to 3 eighth notes. Of course, there may be 2 16th notes in there because 2 16th notes equal an 8th note. Now we're getting into subdivision. I didn't want to get into that just yet. But we will. So now the bottom number, if we had 3-16, there'll be 3 beats in that measure, but 3 16th notes will occupy the space. Now when we get to 4-4, that 4 is the only number that doesn't, like the 8 is easy to understand. That's the 8th note. 16. If we had 2-2, I didn't do 2. Yeah. If we have 2 beats in a measure, and this 2 would represent a half note. See, those are easy to understand. So 2 beats in a measure, and then there are 2 half notes that will occupy that space. 2 half notes. Now, but the 4 is tricky. But we need to know this. Let me take this off. I got this little flimsy thing here. Let me take that off and erase this. Now, let's go into it. in 4/4 time. Yep, 4/4 time. We have 4 beats in the measure, and this 4 equals a quarter note. That's why I didn't start with the 4/4 first, because then in the 4, the 8 is easy to understand. 8 equals the 8th note. 2 equals a half note. 16 equals a 16th note. But when you see the 4, that represents the quarter note. You also see it as common time sometimes too. So in 4/4 time, you have 4 beats in the measure. There should be at least 4 quarter notes representing that space. In 3/4 time, yeah. In 3/4 time, say we have 3/4. Let's put 3/4 here. We have to have 3 quarter notes in the measure. 1, 2, 3. In 2/4 time, yeah, we have 2 quarter notes in each measure. Why? Because the 2 tells us that there should only be 2 quarter notes in that measure. However, don't forget now, when we get into subdividing, there's also 4 eighth notes in this measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, because 2/8, there's also 4 8 16th notes. That's subdivision, that's another video. All right, so I hope that helped you out understanding the time signature. Really know what that means. The top number tells us how many beats are in the measure, and the bottom number tells us what note value occupies that space or occupies that measure. So 4/4, we have 4 quarter notes in that measure. 3/4, 3 quarter notes occupying that space. 2/4, and so forth and so on. 6/8, 6 eighth notes occupy that measure. 4/2, 4 beats in the measure, and 4 half notes occupy that space. If you saw 4/2, if you saw something like 4/2, 4/2, time signature. That tells us 4 beats in the measure. This is important. 4 beats in the measure. However, we're going to have 4 half notes in that measure, right? But that's now you really understand. If you had any questions, I hope this helped you about the time signature, because it's really important. Once you really understand that top number and what that bottom number is representing, then you can do you can start getting into subdivision, which is 4 quarter notes equal a half, equal a whole note, and 2 eighths equal a quarter, 2/16, and then because when you start to reading like 8th rest and 16th rest, you have to locate. Say if we're in 3/4 time, and I have a lot of 16th rest and everything is all jumbled up, I have to locate the main beat. I have to locate those 3 quarter notes. If it's in 3/4 time, I have to locate those 3 quarter notes. Once I locate them, adding up, if there's a 16th rest here or some tie to the dot connecting, I have to add them up. Once I add them up, then I can start breaking it down and subdividing. That's another video. See you on the next one.